Hey everybody, welcome to today's model building workshop. Today we're going to be working with the Panzer II, or as it says here, Panzerkampfwagen II off FG. This is a nice kit from Tamiya, and this is a kit that we've done many times in the model building program at the library. And we've had great success with this kit. It's a fairly simple construction. It's fun to build. It comes with the crew and the infantry here. So you get a set, I'll show you. So you get a set of soldiers that come with this. And here's their gear and some stands you can put them on. It also has the rubber band style treads, which makes things easier for kids. Although you do have to melt the pins on these treads to hold them together with a hot screwdriver or something, which is difficult. That's something for the parents to try to do. Although you could use a stapler and make these work as well. So as you can see, it's got a number of parts, but it's not horrible. You know, it's like the different wheels here. It's mostly wheels. The whole bottom is there, whole top is here, and here's some of the turret assembly there. So this kit will look like something like that when you're done. This one was built actually by a kid that was in the model building program, and I guess he moved away. I ended up kind of painting it up, but and here's another one here that I did that's in a gray version. So this is, like I said, it's a fun kit. It's good for kids. There is another kit by Tamiya out there. This one here. So just be aware of this one, which is a really nice kit, but this is more detailed and a little bit more work for kids than this version, okay? Just a heads up on that for parents. It is a German tank, but of course you can always do it captured. You know, there's plenty of infantry out there you can use. You know, for example, you know, here's some Allied troops here. These are British, Indian, or Gurkhas from Asia. So there's some options there. You know, you can use the French if you want. And of course, you know, there's US troops out there as well. So you can come up with all kinds of fun things to do with this kit if you want to build a scene or something. Anyway, let's kind of jump into some of the construction. I've got some parts on here already. I put the rear panel on the back of the hull. The hull, for the most part, is one piece, which makes that a lot simpler. I'm going to show you how the wheels work on this. So here's a drive sprocket. And what they suggest here in the instructions, and the instruction sheet is a pretty simple, clear-cut sheet with like 4 or 5 assembly steps. A lot of information and history, if you're interested in the history of this vehicle and the battles of North Africa. And a painting guide for the soldiers is here. All right. So with the wheel and the drive sprocket, what they're using for this model, which I think is a pretty nice system, is they have these metal, rubber, like plastic rubber stoppers that they're going to have you put in here. Gonna cut one out. You drop that into the hole. See, that goes in the hole there on the sprocket. Same thing's going to happen for the road wheels. And in this case, we've got this kind of like a hubcap thing, which is really small, really tiny. And we're just going to glue that. Oops, carefully. I'm using the Model Master liquid cement here with a nice applicator. Testors does make a model cement in a blue tube that sells for about $2 to $3, I guess. That's more child friendly if that's a concern. It's less harmful than this one is. This one has a nice applicator, and the glue tends to get sticky quicker. So if you're going to be monitoring your kids, this one's fine, but if you're not, then I don't recommend this one. I recommend you getting a child-friendly one. So now you get the rubber in there. You can just push this. You just push it in, and that way it'll turn. And I've got one of the road wheels on here too, which is kind of the same system. I'll pull this off because it allows you to take it off. Yeah, sure it does. Normally it would. Anyway, it's on there pretty good right now, but so lets it spin. Not that this is going to really move well when you're done, but it does help when you're trying to put the track on later. And I recommend that you wait a day or two after putting all the wheels on before putting the tread on there, because after all, this is kind of a rubber band, right? And if you put that on soon when the glue isn't completely dry, it's going to bend everything, go, and you're not necessarily going to want your treads to go, you know, it's going to bend everything out of shape. So be careful with that. I'll do one of these road wheels so you get the idea how that goes. So they're here. And if you notice on this model, I took the time, which is a little challenging, to paint those tires because it just makes it look a little nicer. It kind of pops out better. And you could, if you could use like a Sharpie to do that if you're not comfortable with the paintbrush. All right, so I'm gonna use some wire clippers here. It's a little more kid-friendly than the X-Acto blades. So there's the road wheel. Here's the cap that's gonna hold the rubber part in. Cut one of those out, come here. Take that out, yeah, 42. And then grab one of these rubber pieces. Now it's good to file these things down, because later on when you're trying to put the treads on, you don't want these bumps kind of snagging on the tread, because it's going to make it harder to get that together, okay? Just a heads up on that. These are things we've discovered from the model building class. Like I said, we've done this a number of times over the years, and we've kind of worked our way through pretty much every scenario that can happen, that can go wrong with this model. So, all right, so this rubber piece sits into this plastic cup like so, and then I'm going to get a little bit of glue. Whoops. And that's what I like about this one. You can really draw a nice line. Just going to draw a little bit of glue in here. Don't need a lot, but enough. And this cement's not going to affect the rubber anyway. The rubber's not going to be, it's not going to glue the rubber part, because this is only for plastic. And again, you just push that on. There you go. And pretty soon you'll have them all on there. And then you get these little, they refer to as return rollers up here. I'm going to put one of those on so you get the idea where that goes. Yeah. Now these aren't going to move. You have to glue those in, but they just go up above to kind of hold the track in place. Yeah, like so. So you get the idea. And you just kind of go around the whole vehicle, and there's a rear idler wheel that you put on afterwards as well. Same process with the wheel, the rubber part, and a cap. And they all push on. And that's pretty much what you got to do for the lower hull. There is a muffler piece that's going to go on the back, which I'll do that now, because that's got a little tricky part to it. So you see the muffler here is number 20. So I'm going to cut that. file that bump down. As you notice on this one, I painted it with the different shades of brown to give it, and red to give it this rusty look, because these mufflers often would get like that. Of course, you can paint it however you want. It's as long as you and your kids are having fun with it. Alright, so this is handy because it's got, it's got a tab on one side and the hole on the other side, so you can't put it on backwards. And you'll see the slot there and the pin here. So that goes into the slot and the pin goes in there. And now you've got your exhaust system starting to go there, but there is going to be a little tailpipe. And the tailpipe is kind of tiny. The tailpipe is piece number 24 there. You can see that. I'm going to try to get that on there. Yeah, because it's pretty small. It's right there. Of course, if your kids find that too frustrating, you can always, you can always leave things out if they're getting frustrated with them. It's not supposed to drive you crazy. It's supposed to be fun. And that is small. Handy emery board for sanding things down. Yeah. Hard to hold that. It is tiny. There's an itty bitty notch on the end of that piece, which goes into this little protrusion over here on the side of the muffler. I'm going to attempt to get this on there. Let's see if I can do it. It should just kind of, oops. Yeah, right. Sit on there. Well, sure, easier said than done, right? Interesting, how is it sitting on the other ones? Yeah, that's kind of go up at an angle. All right. Okay, there's the exhaust pipe on the end. Okay. So I'm going to jump ahead because I showed you pretty much how the wheels go. Now I'm going to move on to the turret assembly, which is where the gun is, and some other things here. There's an option on this tank. You could either put, like on these, the rear window flap on the back, or there is a storage box that can go on the back. I'll take a look at how I want to do this. So these are things you need to think about up front. So I'm going to start by working on the gun assembly here. And I'm going to see how things are kind of going with that, and we'll go from there. So you're going to notice, this happens a lot on model kits. You get these little molding issues. You're going to see these little tiny circular blobs of plastic. That's what happens when they came out of the mold. So you're going to want to take these circular discs off those. So let me take that off the machine gun. So the Panzer II was invented in Germany in the 1930s, and this was really meant to be a training tank for the newly rebuilt German army. But as Hitler got more aggressive and more impatient with things, war broke out a lot sooner than the German military was really ready for. So they ended up going into war with these tanks, even though they had intended to build bigger and stronger machines than this for combat. These did, however, serve pretty well as a combat tank in the early part of the war. But by 1941, when the Germans invaded the Soviet Union, invaded Russia, the weakness of this tank became quite clear. And it was then kind of downgraded to being a scout tank instead of a combat tank. Lots of these were used in the Sahara Desert, North Africa, fighting there against the British and later the Americans. And some of these tanks continue to serve in Europe. Mostly either scout tanks or as vehicles for commanders to ride around in. And some of those are still in use, like in Italy and France and places like that, till the end of the war. And on the production lines at the factories that were building these, what they ended up doing, rather than wasting all of these tanks that they had, they simply kept, the body, the hull of it, and just mounted different types of equipment on top. So a lot of these were converted into these, they're called self-propelled guns, so they would mount a much heavier cannon on it, but it would just be kind of mounted on top of a shield because it wouldn't have a turret to turn it. So in that way, these things continue to be in use right up till the end of the war in various capacities. Okay, so the machine gun is going to go in this small hole here. It should pop in rather nice. There is some little bumps for detail on this thing, so you kind of want to highlight those a bit. Line them up in some way. So there's the machine guns in there, and now I'm going to put the cannon in. I guess I need to file it down better. I didn't do a very good job of filing that. Kind of want a nice clean fit here. So the cannon, there it is. A little bit of glue on the end. And that should pop right in. Alright, so there's the guns. And now I'm going to get the upper part of the turret here. Cut this out. I'll get the lower part too here. Of course, you can use the wire cutters too for this. I'm just using this thing because it's in front of me here. Again, file these bumps down so it's nice and smooth fit. Seriously, this is going to be your most prized possession when you're building models, because this takes care of a lot of issues, because these little tiny bumps of plastic, if you don't file them down, it's really going to throw off the fit of the model and cause you a lot of headaches. And this is probably the cheapest tool you're going to get to make that happen. Alright, little notches here. They're eventually going to line up for the holes here, so this will turn on your tank model. Try to file it down a bit. On this side. Then I'm going to put that on. Screw scrape some of this extra stuff off. All right, I want to test fit this, which is always a good idea before you put glue on, is to make sure these things fit well. And that does. Okay. So, we'll look at the diagram here. So the cannon is on this side, the machine gun is kind of on the right side. So, make sure I get it lined up correctly. And they go in there like that. Do not glue this because you want the guns to go up and down. So that's going to sit like that. Now, carefully put some glue around here. There's a nice notch there to line it up with. Yeah. Try to go around a bit. I'm going to sit that thing in. And there's the gun, which elevates pretty nicely. All right, hold it like that. See what we're doing on time here. And then, let me see, about a couple of the little window visor things here. They would lift up on the real tank so they could get some air and look outside, and it would close them down in combat. This doesn't really give you the option of opening them, but you can shut them down. All right, so I'll put one of these on. And I might stop there for this week's episode. And then we'll tackle that part the next time. And then we'll look at the figures as well. All right, here's that one. Too much of us to file down a little bit. Come on. That one goes in here. There should be enough glue there to fit that. You'll notice there's a notch. Well, there's an angled plane on the back of that window, that so it slides into the opening. All right, so there you have it. So there's how the gun goes. All right, there's a window there. There's a back window vision slot, which I may or may not put on depending if I'm going to put the spare box, which is here, which I might think about that. And that's how we've got the turret. There's a hatch that's going to go up here. Actually, why don't I try doing that before we stop today? Let me see if I got time for that. So there's a ring here, and then there's this hatch. Now you can leave the hatch open if you want to put your crew guy inside this. And the crew man is right here. Got the top bottom. He's got his arms are here. He basically sits in the tank with his binoculars. So if we want to use him, we're going to need to leave this hatch open. Here's this ring. Yeah, it's going to be hard to sand this down because it's on an angle. But the idea is to get this on and leave the hatch open for our figure. All right, let me see how that goes on. You're going to notice there's a notch here that's going to hook on with the latch. So this is going to go, and they've got little holes, indentations on the top here. Okay, so that's going to go like that. So I'm going to put some glue on the bottom of these pins. Okay, and then we're going to put that into these little holes. Oops. Oh, on, you wanted to go a minute ago. Yeah, this is kind of giving me some issues. No, there it is. I have to hold that for a minute. It seems to want to fight me a bit. So they're closed on these models. You know, the hatch sitting in there. So those are closed. I'll see what I'll do with this one. I'll open this one up. Just give me 1 second to try to do that. And then we'll call it a day. So here's the hatch. Look at this diagram. So, okay. If you can see that. There's detail on one side that shows like a little tiny hatch that comes up. And it looks like these notches are facing upward. And then I've got to try to hook them on. Okay. All right. It's holding without glue, but that's the position it's going to be in, so your crewman can go inside. Okay? Just going to add a little bit of glue to that. And then that guy can go in there. Again, that's how the wheels went on. They're a little wobbly, but once you put the treads on, that'll all line up pretty good. And next time, we will tackle the top of the hull and put that on the bottom there, and we'll be in good shape. Okay, so hope you've enjoyed it. That's today's lesson, and we'll move on and finish this up in upcoming episodes, and we'll look at the crew and the infantry that came with it as well. Okay, so hope to see you guys soon. Have fun building, and don't forget, keep on reading. All right, we'll see you soon.